an awesome sponsor. I'm actually a huge fan of Brickhouse Nutrition. So you guys can go to fieldofgreens.com and use code Tim. I have it right here. Check this out. This stuff is awesome. It's organic superfood. This one's wild berry flavor, and it's green. It's like a bunch of vegetables. And you put it in your drink, and it makes it taste like berries, but it's got like kale and spinach and stuff in it. Anyway, I should probably read what they want me to say about this, because I could just go off on how much I love this stuff. But so let's get real. We're all human. I like to talk a big game about how I eat healthy, but the truth is I don't. Today I stripped the cheese off of pizza and threw the bread back in the box and then just ate the cheese.
Dude, I saw that. That was you. I saw 3 pieces of pizza with no cheese, and I was like, what disgusting animal did this?
Who did this?
Okay.
The audacity.
Anyway, guys, I'm reading an ad here. But yes, it's true as me. So I know you guys don't always eat healthy. This is why doctors have created Field of Greens. A delicious glass of Field of Greens daily is like a nutritional armor for your body. Each fruit and vegetable was doctor selected for a specific health benefit. There's a heart health group, lungs and kidney groups, metabolism, and even healthy weight. I drink this when I skate. It legit makes me feel better. And I think it's probably related to, like, I probably need vitamins, you know what I mean? And this has got a lot of them in it. So I'm a big fan. I can enjoy it guilt-free because it's Field of Greens. It's the nutrition my body needs daily, and only Field of Greens makes you this better health promise. Your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Wow. Let me get you started with my special discount, everybody. We got 20% off your first order by going to fieldofgreens.com. Use code Tim. Legit, I ain't kidding. We got it right here. I throw a scoop in that with either water. Sometimes I do a coconut water, and it's good. I exercise, almost daily, and so I stick to it. Shout out to Field of Greens for sponsoring the show. From the White House itself. Look at this. Whitehouse.gov, lab leak true origins of COVID-19. And right here is this interesting photo of Fauci touching his forehead where it shows the grant of clemency from Joseph R. Biden. And it says a full and unconditional pardon for any offenses against the United States, which he may have committed or taken part in from January 1st, 2014. Now, the reason that's interesting is that this is the repurposed COVID.gov, which highlights the lab leak origins. It goes on to basically say, here are the origins, here's the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the wet market. But what I find really interesting is that it basically goes through how Fauci, and with his funding through Peter Daszak into the Wuhan lab, they were doing gain-of-function research. It even says, a lab-related incident involving gain-of-function research is the most likely origin. They mention the NIH failures. They then show Fauci's pardon, and then they go to show obstruction, lying. They mention New York obstruction. They mention how they say mask mandates. There was no evidence. There was no evidence for lockdowns or social distancing. My view of this, the only reason you do this is that you are prepping the public for some kind of enforcement action. They don't need to repurpose it and create an entire, they designed this. Has got code and graphics and everything. They want public perception on this issue. They showed Donald Trump. Now, I don't know if we'll ever actually see arrests of people who we feel did wrong at any point in time in the previous administration or otherwise. Fauci was working in the Trump administration. That being said, the rumor is, come summertime, we will see some kind of arrests. I don't know if you guys agree with that or believe we'll see anything like that, but what do you think?
One thing I'll mention, of course, is a pardon does not protect you from civil action.
Yes.
There's no reason the federal government can't be suing this guy for fraud, malfeasance, and all the probably trillions of dollars of damages he caused to the American people. The other thing is the pardon power, of course, is a core and plenary power of the Article 2 executive branch, the president, the only branch of government where the entire authority, the executive authority, is endowed on one single individual. The pardon's only legitimate if it's backed by that single individual's will. They chose to do that. If I do a pardon, it doesn't count. If you do a pardon, it doesn't count. But we don't know for a fact that Joe Biden willed this pardon because it was done by an auto pen. And there's no other evidence to suggest he even knew this pardon was being issued. And if it wasn't by his will, it has no more authority than if I issued it or Tim issued it.
There's also that super sketchy video where they asked him about the pardons and he said he had no idea what they were talking about.
Really?
Yeah, there's like this, It's very off the cuff. It was like when they were asking him questions as he was walking by and they were trying not to let reporters talk to him. He says, I don't know what you're talking about. And
he did not sign those pardons.
If you, he didn't sign, we don't have a wet signature on almost anything. at all
By the way,
during the last
if,
2 years.
if they used an auto pen and he says, yes, I authorize the auto pen, that's legit. That's fine. He doesn't
that
have to
counts.
sign it personally. The problem is we don't have that connection
Yeah.
between his will and the use of the auto pen. And we know it was being accessed by a variety of people.
So you just mentioned what immediately I went to, which is that a pardon doesn't protect you from anything civil. And I would not think it out of the realm of possibility given Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s track record of outright disdain for Anthony Fauci and his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, which most of those talking points were almost taken letter for letter from. I would not be shocked if they started posting documents here that could help the civil cases to start.
And also
That would
worth
not shock me.
reminding people, Anthony Fauci was the highest paid government official for many, many, many years, more than the president, more than anybody else in government.
He's getting a huge amount in retirement now too, right?
Sure.
He had 3.5 million the first year.
Yeah.
Retired?
Retired. But they said that some of that money overlapped while he was still working and he wasn't supposed to. There was just an article, what was it in? There was an article that came out earlier today, like 5-6 hours ago, where they said that it looks like maybe there was some failure to disclose that he wasn't quite retired and was already accepting money.
It sounds like gain of pension research.
That's clever.
Well, he lied to Congress. I would say now with the White House asserting they were doing gain of function research. I mean, we've got contradictory statements from Fauci in court saying outright, we did not do this.
Yeah, he was very clear on that. He was very clear that they weren't doing gain of function research. And also he was, doubling down on all of these mandates and requirements, the 6-foot thing, the mask thing. And then when books started coming out, what was it? Dr. Deborah Burke's book came out and it was revealed that the 6-foot thing was just
Made an arbitrary measurement.
what they were doing since the Middle Ages or something. It's like, it was just always been 6 foot. So we never really questioned
They
it.
just made
Half a
bunch of
horse
stuff up.
length.
Right. I mean, I guess there's that thing where you like bury bodies 6 feet underground so that bacteria doesn't come up. But like between people, that's not really the same kind of thing.
One of my favorite things was the double masking, which I literally, you watch it emerge in the media. First, someone randomly and arbitrarily asked Dr. Fauci, if a mask protects you, wouldn't 2 masks be better? And he shrugged it off like, I don't know. And then the media started running with 2 masks are better. And then once it got reported that 2 masks were better, Fauci just agreed with it.
And he started wearing 2 masks.
Yep.
My favorite mask, though, had to have been Alyssa Milano's crocheted
the knit
mask.
one.
You have a favorite mask?
That was my favorite one because she took a selfie of her and her family in their car, and they were all masked up. And she was like, I made mine. And everyone was like, you realize there's holes in it.
Because she's secretly based.
Yeah. Well,
She's
wasn't-
letting
she's
it slide.
secretly, not so secretly an idiot.
The truth is there are holes in all masks of varying sizes. And that just showed they didn't actually care if they worked or not. It was just put something on your face.
No.
One of the things that was
Yeah.
really hard, like I ran a small business that was shut down by my county for 17 months. And I owned a gymnastics business for kids and we had to repurpose our business. We were going to lose everything. We did lose everything.
Did you
that
bend
what
over
propelled
backwards to
you?
keep it open?
We weren't allowed. We were fully shuttered. Larry Hogan actually, his wife's family has investments in martial arts, so they were given the only exception in our state. All other sports, all recreation was closed down. But
Is
our
that what
county
propelled you into being a small business advocate?
part of it, yeah, that's a big part of it. And so we were shut down for 17 months, second longest closure in the United States in my tiny little county, just right down the street from here. And during that time frame, we had to go to being a virtual school. So we went from being a gymnastics facility to a virtual school where kids would bring their laptops in. And we were only allowed to have 18 of them. And no matter what their ages were, we had to put siblings in the same pod, which was so unsafe. We had 3-year-olds alongside 11 and 12-year-olds. And when they had to go to play in the gym, they had to be together. Not safe. My insurance hated it, right? When they had to go to art class, they were together, but they weren't anywhere near the same skill set. And what would happen was they repurposed all the health department inspectors that were doing restaurants before us. And they would come in and harass the kids. And they would come over and ask, do you have a brother or sister here? We had to let them. Like they would come in and they would say they would shut us down by force if we didn't let them come in and interrogate children to make sure they didn't have siblings in the room. Our kids suffered, and all these
Well,
small
that's another
businesses
Fauci
suffered.
thing. That's another Fauci thing. Is all of the kids suffered
Yep.
across the entire
All the kids
country
suffered. It's
who were in
tragic.
who were in schools with masking and everything else, and there was no real evidence to suggest. And this came up repeatedly. There was no real evidence to suggest that kids were vectors of this illness at all. I think that I don't know about revoking pardons necessarily of a previous administration. It
Can
does
you revoke a presidential pardon?
I don't. It is pretty much unprecedented.
Yeah.
It's happened, I think, twice.
Give me those examples.
Yeah. So I believe at one point I went all through this a while ago when Trump first said he was revoking pardons, but it happened twice. One, George W. Bush revoked a pardon that he had given himself.
Oh, okay.
And that was different, and he revoked that pardon. And I believe Ulysses S. Grant revoked a pardon. And in both cases, these pardons were revoked before the pardonee had received the pardon. So that ended up being the determining factor that pardons were eligible for revocation. Under the George Bush case, it was because he had given a pardon to someone who then it turned out
So it
that
wasn't
guy's dad gave a ton of money to the GOP, and he was like, it looks dodgy.
Isaac Tucci. Was that the story? The 2008 George W. Bush was granting a pardon to a man named Isaac Tucci, but then revoked it the next day.
Yeah, I don't think one president can revoke another president's pardon if the pardon was given with authority, if it's legitimate.
If he actually knew it was happening and it wasn't somebody just stuck it in the machine and walked it out.
Yeah, but then how do you prove that?
I mean, that's the thing, right? How do you prove that? You would need like a whistleblower from inside that was a part of it, or you would need to be able to question a former president, which is really difficult to do.
Especially when it's one that's mentally retarded.
Well, and then the issue comes up, I think the
Infirm.
auto pen
Say
thing.
infirm.
Sorry,
He's
when he's
geriatrically
mentally
infirm.
infirmed.
I think the auto pen thing is interesting. I was talking to someone on post-millennial staff who had previously been a congressional staffer, and he said that the senator he worked for often authorized use of the auto pen, but that was a direct authorization.
Right.
You know, like that was very specific.
Or they just leave it political. They don't try to make it actionable. They don't try to actually get rid of this pardon, but they just make the whole world know that, hey, the Democrats had a guy in office for 4 years who is not mentally competent.
This is a problem that is much, I mean, obviously, when it's the president, this is a huge problem. But this is just like, I mean, a direct connection to when they had Dianne Feinstein literally on death's door, wheeled down to vote. And they're saying, say aye. And she goes, aye what, dear? And they're like, say aye. And she goes, I would like to. And they're like, say aye. And she couldn't. And then the aide reaches across and goes, aye. And they counted her vote. She didn't know what she was voting on.
Or there was the woman in Texas over the summer, the lawmaker who was in a old folks home, and so she hadn't been shown
In the
up for
dementia
Congress.
ward, yes.
Yeah.
By the way,
This is a problem.
you see how Trump signs his executive orders, like those first couple days in
those-
office?
the big
He had the
Sharpies.
giant stack of them, right?
Yeah.
He signs them on camera,
Yep.
in person, with a big pen.
And he loves the
Because
ceremony.
I
of
bet
it,
he
too.
does that because he's well aware that, because they've always been making claims about his mental competence, right? Unsupported by any evidence. But if he was just auto-penning these executive orders, you don't think they would attack them as not being legitimate?
He also has staff read out what they are.
Yep.
So that everyone hears what they are and he acknowledges what each one is and then he signs it. I think that's actually really smart. The other thing that I think, I don't know what you guys think of this, but it says in this COVID thing, data shows that all COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans. This runs contrary to previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events. That, I think, is extremely damning. And it's very similar to what COVID skeptics were saying for years and were canceled from the internet and from their jobs and everything else for saying.
Except for Jon Stewart, because he was one of them.
Right.
Well, that was really funny how Colbert was going like, when Jon Stewart was like, it's the lab.
Yep.
And Stephen Colbert was dancing around with the people in vaccine costumes.
And the funny thing is, that's the only one most people cite, but you know he did that several times.
Really?
He had the Vax scene was an ongoing segment he did with a bunch of different weird shenanigans where syringes were dancing around. Everyone likes to cite that
Very
one where
poor
they're
taste.
on stage doing the stupid dance. He's got a bunch of them, not just the one.
Are they as equally funny?
What's that?
Are they all equally as funny?
They're funny to us, and you know, at some point he's going to argue the intent was to be funny, so he succeeded. He's like, joke's on you. I was only pretending to be retarded, and we're going to be like, oh, okay,
Mentally infirm.
mentally infirm. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.